Story time. So welcome back, and I'm super excited to share this kind of funny story, but it's also something that I think people need to know, especially when living in the Central Virginia area, because like I've said before, Central Virginia is central, which is so awesome because there's so many things around you to do. But one of the things that people do not talk about are going on trips. And I'm not talking about day trips. I'm talking about the trips that I was just on. So I recently left Virginia to go to Florida for a real estate retreat. Women only. It was great. The more you know, the more you grow. And I really find that it's super important for me to learn all the new things so that I can serve my clients to the best of my ability. So I was not planning to go on this trip. It was very spur of the moment. I was contemplating it, and I also had a little bit of FOMO because this trip was actually going to be a lot of fun as well as a lot of learning. So I would contemplated on going on this trip, but then it was kind of too late to go until I got a message. So I got this message. Well, really, it was a Facebook post that said that a couple of spots had opened up last minute for this real estate beach retreat. And because of my FOMO, I was just like, oh my gosh. And it was, my business coach was like, message me if you're interested. So what did I do? I messaged my business coach. And we were chit-chatting back and forth, and I was like, maybe I could make this happen, maybe not. Now, this was on a Sunday night. I was expected to be there on Tuesday. So literally kind of less than 24 hours, 48 hours, sorry, less than 48 hours. And I talked to my husband. I made arrangements. I did what I could do. Now, the next thing was going to be finding an airplane ticket, a flight out of Richmond. Well, I currently live about 35 miles away from the Richmond airport, and I live about 65-ish or so miles from Reagan National Airport. And I can fly out of both of them. Obviously, we can all fly out of any airport we want to, but those are my two preferred airports. However, Richmond is always going to come first over Reagan. But that's one thing that I love about living in Central Virginia is that I have the options. So that's where we were. I was messaging back and forth, right? So I'm looking at these flights. I, of course, Google. And a lot of the times when you leave out of Richmond, it could be a little bit more expensive. So I was looking at these flights, and granted, 2 days, I was like, okay. It was $665 to fly out of Richmond, 35 minutes away. Okay. So then, and my business coach is helping me. So we're both looking for flights. At the same time, we both find the same flight out of Reagan. And that flight was going to be $455. I was like, okay, that's pretty normal, and there are times where Reagan does have less expensive flights. And if you're willing to make that drive on 95, depending on the time and day that you need to be there, you might get stuck in traffic. So you have to give yourself plenty enough time to be able to get to the Reagan airport in time to catch your flight. So I was like, sold, let's do it. So I get on there. I'm putting in my card information. I purchased the flight for $455. And I was excited. I was like, yes, we're doing this. I can't believe this. I'm like flying by the seat of my pants. Okay. Planning a trip in less than 2 days. And of course, I'm just going to have to use what I have in my closet, right? I don't have time for shopping or anything like that. So I asked my daughter, will you please take me to the airport? It's Reagan. And she's freaking out. She's like, no, Mom, I can't take you. I get anxiety when I drive up there by myself. I can't do that. All right. So she's just a little dramatic about that. I understand. Whatever. My husband couldn't take me because he had something super important to do at work. So I was on my own. I was going to have to take myself to the airport. I'm a big girl. I can do this. My flight was super early in the morning. I was going to have to leave at 3 o'clock in the morning to make my flight on time. Not only that, I was going to have to pay for parking. So, getting the parking all taken care of course. So I contemplated. I started to develop like a little bit of some anxiety. I was like, gosh, 3 o'clock in the morning. I hate driving when it's dark. And yeah, I don't think I want to do this. So I start thinking, let me see what I can do to change my flight to come out of Richmond. So I get back online. I'm looking. I'm able to change my flight for only $100. Okay. So yes, $100. That took it up to $555, right? I was like, sold. I can do this. No big deal. So on Tuesday, I get everything going. I do what I need to do. I'm getting ready for my flight, all packed up. I take the dog to the groomer, which I have a great groomer recommendation in the Caroline County area. So I take myself to the airport. I'm parking. I think I forgot to mention that parking at Reagan Airport was going to be $100. So $100, or I could park in Richmond for $28. And I'm used to parking in Richmond. I know exactly where to go. I don't need to use my GPS, any of that kind of stuff, because it is closer to me. And I do normally fly out of Richmond unless like I just fly out of Reagan for odd occasions. Okay. Anyway, drive myself to the airport. I feel like a flippin' winner. Okay. I'm like, yes, I did this. Get on that flight and I head down to Florida to see some of my real estate besties. I'm going to learn all sorts of good stuff and bring it home with me so that I can become a better real estate agent. And yeah, so we had a great time. Met lots of new faces and all of that kind of stuff. And so excited to have lots of things actually to implement into my business. Actually, I'm choosing 3 things that I want to start implementing. That's not this video. All right. So Thursday. So the trip was from Tuesday to Friday. Friday we check out, we fly back home. So Thursday I take the time real quick and I was like, oh, I need to check into my flight and do that kind of thing, So Thursday I'm checking in, right? I look and I couldn't find the email that I needed, to check in, to do. I went on my Southwest app and I couldn't find it either. And so I thought something was a little strange, but I was like, you know what? I'll take care of this later. I'm just going to go finish having a good time at dinner. And like I said, deal with it later. So later came the very next morning, early that morning, and I realized when I changed my flight from Reagan to the Richmond airport, I only changed the one flight. I thought it changed both flights, but it only changed the one flight. So now I'm stuck. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I can't go home to Reagan because my car is not there. My car is in the Richmond airport. So I had to spend another $100 to change my flight to go home to Richmond and not Reagan. Y'all, I just had to laugh about it because I really kind of screwed myself. If I would have just said yes to the $665 flight ticket out of Richmond to begin with, I would not have been in this mess. Instead, I'm trying to save $1. I fly out of Reagan, realize I'm not really saving $1, so I'm going to switch my flights. So my flight was changed for an extra $100. If I would have just went out of Richmond to begin with, I wouldn't have had this issue. But that's what happens. That's sometimes what happens when you have choices. And the choice was I could fly. I have 2 different airports. Really, I have more than 2 different airports that I get to choose from. But I had 2 different airports to choose from. So of course, naturally, I want to choose the cheaper one. If only it was during the times I wanted it to be, and it wasn't. So, moral of the story, just stick with what you know best. Unless you have a ride to the airport, you don't have to worry about it. But living in Central Virginia, that is the option you have there. There's also Dulles. There's Reagan. Richmond, Charlottesville, let's see, Norfolk, Newport News, somewhere around there. And there's a few other little airports as well, like in Fredericksburg and Hanover. So there are a lot, I mean, big flights don't fly into Fredericksburg or Hanover, but if you have somebody that has a small plane or something, those are definitely options. But there are so many options, and I hope you learn your lesson from me by just going with what you know. The Richmond Airport is actually just so easy to navigate through, and I felt comfortable, and that's why I was MIA. I wasn't making any video content. I mean, I made two little video contents. I've already posted one on TikTok and Instagram. Trying to still get into the habit of posting on my YouTube so that I can share everything that I need to share right on my YouTube. But that is the crazy, funny, not so funny story. I was mad at myself. I was the only person that could be mad at myself. No, and didn't affect anybody. So, but yeah, know that when you're in Central Virginia, you do have those choices. And if you need any recommendations on flights, on what flight I think you should take, do not ask me, clearly, because I want to tell you, just choose the cheaper one. Who cares what time it leaves? Really deep down, I care what time it leaves. Like I said, I do not want to leave at 3:00 in the morning. But let's also cover the fact that I live in the southern part of Central Virginia. So I am going to be closer to Richmond. But those people who live in like the upper part of Central Virginia, they're going to be closer to Reagan. So you're going to have a little bit of those options for you because of the localities of them. So if you are in the northern, like Central Virginia area or middle Central Virginia area, you may want to fly out of Reagan. If you are lower than that, go with me to the... Okay, that's all I have for you today. Just a little bit of Central Virginia content for you so that you can make an informative decision if your decisions need to be based on airports, which I do have clients who have had to base where they move to based on where the airports are. So that was really helpful for them to know, like, okay, you have these airports to choose from. So if you're somebody who has to fly out a lot, travel a lot, or you're just somebody who likes to travel a lot, know that you have those two options and just make a good decision. Unlike me, I should have just we all know, I should have went with the other decision. We already know this, right? So anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe because I hope to bring you more content on what it's like living in Central Virginia and a little bit of what's going on inside of my head. Happy first day of fall. It's actually the second day of fall. I'm a mess. I'm a nice mess though, nonetheless a mess. So thanks for joining me. I can't wait to share the next video. And if you don't mind, just hit that subscribe button. If you're interested in learning anything else that I've been sharing, just reach out to me. You can call or text me.